I can start the book, or what do you feel like? Hi, I'm Evren Uzer. I'm currently based in Gothenburg. I work at the School of Design and Crafts. My background has nothing to do with tech issues. I'm not going to really talk about technology per se, which I will talk about the Gezi protests, which happened in 2013 in Turkey. And I will talk about some of the practices that kind of started its roots from Gezi protests and the thinking behind that. And there's of course some technological contribution to how the events have kind of evolved. I will also mention briefly. I don't know if any of you have been following or have been even in there in Turkey during the protests, but maybe you've been following it like in the general media, like Arab Spring and so on. So this is the park where it all started. It's in Istanbul. It's one of the very few green spaces in the central city, in the European side of the city. Just to kind of put things in context, that is Turkey. So Istanbul is in the northwestern part of Turkey, and it's located in two continents. One part is in the European side, the other part is in the Asian side. The park is located in the European side of Istanbul, and it's in a very so it's connected to so that is the park, and then it's connected to a pedestrian route that goes for 1.5 kilometers, and it's a very, very crowded area, which I can say like around 2 million pedestrians pass every day from that pedestrian road. So just to kind of give you a scale of its centrality. So protesters walking up and down the street in a given May day is like a very usual scene, that people choose that spot to be seen, to kind of find their place in the mainstream media, so to speak. So just to kind of give a brief background to what that place was before, because I think it's kind of relevant to the current discussions. The area or the nearby part of the Gezi Park used to be an Armenian cemetery in the 16th century, which has been closed in early 19th century, and then it has been the tombstones that were not claimed being recycled for the park, today's park, which some of the marble tombstones have been used in the fountains and the stairs of the current park, so there's some sort of recycling thing going on. And the past of the Turkish Republic and also the late Ottoman period is full of atrocities and on each different scales, which kind of causes today's conflicts that is inherent in the community, which are towards the non-Muslim communities. In this case, it was the Armenians. So after or at the times that the Armenian cemetery has been kind of closed, a military barrack has been built in 1800s, which stood there for about 100 years. It was an Ottoman military barrack, didn't really much contribution to architectural style except its gates. And this is the building which the government thought of rebuilding in place of the park. So the military barrack looked like this. And then there had been a rebellion in 1909, and it has been waiting for repair. And in 1921, it was turned into a stadium, where it was the first football stadium of Turkey where the big matches have been played. And this went on until 1940s, and it's not shown here, but when you make it PDF, of course they overlap. But there's a plan underneath there. So this area became, the Gezi Park of today, became one of the first public spaces that was part of the modernization project of the Turkish Republic. So during Ottoman period, people were socializing quite based on their genders, women mostly indoors and men mostly outdoors. So with the establishment of the Republic, new thinking, and men and women should be mingling together also in the public space, a series of different projects have been prepared, and this was a big part of it. And it was opened in 1942. And for those of you who don't know the details, but a lot of things changed with the establishment of the Republic, how people have been dressing, how they have been using, the letters have changed to Latin alphabet. So it was a lot of things happening at once. And this park was a place that where also Muslim population could socialize together. So it was how it was looking in 1942. So in 2011, the Istanbul municipality came up with this idea that they want to revive the heritage of the Ottoman Empire, which they have been kind of carrying this ideals of neo-Ottoman ideals, that they are thinking that they are the ones who are kind of carrying it to our generation. So they said they're going to rebuild this military barrack, which stood there for about 100 years, which we didn't really have the blueprints, just some pictures of those military barracks. And what they said that it's going to be luxury residences and shopping malls. So if you remember the first picture, I don't know if I have sorry, let me go back. So if you remember the first picture, currently the park has the trees in the outer skirt. So what they mean is that they're going to take away all the trees that are there in the park, and they're going to build this barrack, which is going to be a private space, and the park today is a public space. So I'll just give a little bit pause there, and then to kind of give you a little bit of a background, what has been happening because this development is a part of a big development which has been happening in the last 10 to 15 years all over Turkey, and very rapidly in Istanbul. There have been urban transformation projects. Istanbul, like most of Turkey, is in the active earthquake zone. So the government came up with this set of laws, which started in 2003-2004, saying that they're going to renew all the building stock stage by stage to make them enduring the upcoming earthquake, which is any time in 6% possibility in the coming years. So we have kind of overdue in this periodic earthquake happenings. So they started coming up with these new laws which allow the government to declare areas that are eligible for urban transformation, which the government appropriated the land, and then they have built new housing. But which in reality it happened that places, this is a displacement map from 2009, it's even worse now. So it happened that different parts of Istanbul, this is all Istanbul, this part, I don't know if I have a pointer or something, but anyways, so that part that is closer to me is the historical part, and then Istanbul has kind of grown from there. So it happened all these in different places where people had been, low-income people in general, have been displaced from areas where the new housing was for middle-income or upper-middle-income people. So it has been actually kind of a wealth transfer in that sense. And then the people who have been displaced from these areas have been sent to outer skirts of the city, where their livelihoods are kind of left behind in the city center. And each of them have created some protests, but they were like pockets of protests which didn't find their place in the mainstream media, and it was mainly just the ones who are directly involved kind of know about it, and it was happening very fast since the government was kind of preparing all the jurisdictional structure to kind of make the process fast. And what the current government is very proud of mainly is that the speed of construction, so they do it so fast. And in some cases there have been some court cases going on, but when the court case ends, the buildings are already gone, so there's not much to do. So at this time there have been some protests and so on. So with the park, the projects that I showed kind of leaked to the media. And then there was nothing, but one day, just some construction machines were seen at the park. And there were a group of environmentalists who came for a peaceful sit-in and just kind of hang around. There were a lot of police who were protecting around the construction machines. And this is the first image that actually kind of, maybe he was the first policeman who started with just tear gassing. And there are actually consecutive images where he's chasing the woman and continuing to use the tear gas on her, which kind of became an iconic image, one of the iconic images that has happened. So Turkey is known for brutal police intervention in these senses, but in the previous incidents it really didn't kind of create an outrage. But this time it kind of found its way through the mainstream media. This is how I started in the first image. So one of the famous history magazines had an issue called History Recorded Live, and as a part of that they have kind of turned into some of these images into Ottoman miniatures, and they have used that. And by the way, that I should say that the history magazine was never published because there's a very tight connection between the media moguls and the construction companies because the law allows them to own both of them. So there was a very serious media blackout, so they stopped the magazine to be published, but then it's kind of, they distributed it free online and it went viral. I think it's reached the most audience that it had in many times. So the protests started in May 31st, and it was just around 50 people in the first day. And the media was not showing anything, the mainstream media. So most of the images were going through either peer-to-peer, like people were telling their friends about how the situation is in Taksim, or through Twitter most of the time. So the people kind of increased and increased, and it was the mainstream media in Turkey were showing documentaries instead of showing these, while, for instance, CNN Turk was famous for showing this penguin documentary, while CNN International was doing live broadcasts from the Gezi Park showing how it was. So people who have been a part of the protests started to kind of tweet to large media companies, especially with the international bodies, to kind of trick them to get a report from there. And on the third and fourth day, it's been going on because the Prime Minister, Erdogan himself, who, despite the protests, he went on saying that we will continue and build this shopping mall. This will happen in the park, no matter that couple of looters. He used the word looters, çapulcu, which was quickly subverted by the protesters, and they said that çapulcu is something who is fighting for their rights, and they kind of anglicized it by çapuller and so on. And Noam Chomsky actually recorded a YouTube video saying that he's also one of those. So they kind of subverted the language that was kind of produced by the government and kind of sent back. And then there was no decrease in the police intervention. They were just going directly. There had been, at the time, 5 people died because of shootings. This tear gas, police shooting tear gas canisters. And in total, I think 8 people died, and like countless people died, have been hurt, heavily hurt during the protests. But after the media coverage kind of started, especially from the international media, there had been a little bit of pressure, so the police kind of backed off, and there had been these surreal barricade images from different parts of Taksim. So these are the roads that is reaching to the Gezi Park area, where people have taken out all the materials they could find, and they build up barricades. So it was kind of called the late 68 of Turkey in a way. And who were these people? There have been lots of rumors. Of course, the government has been kind of presenting it as some group of looters who haven't been, really has nothing to do, but a research company made a research on the 5th day when they have been settling in the park. Oh, yeah, okay. I should just first start by seeing this image. It was quite a heterogeneous group, and this image is very, very important depicting that. So the person in the front is holding a flag that belongs to the Kurdish party that is in the parliament. The one in the back is having a Turkish flag, which is having an Atatürk, the founder of Turkish Republic, and usually kind of claimed by the nationalists, who wouldn't in any case be together with someone from the Kurdish party. And this guy is making the ultra-nationalist move, and there's actually water cannon is coming, so they're all kind of running away from the same thing. So the group who made the research talked to about 4,400 people at the park at different hours, and 92% of them used their citizen identity only. They said they came because they thought the police was very brutal to the people who were initially there, who were a group of environmentalists. So they've seen a picture, they've heard the rumors, they just came to take a look, and they've been tear gassed or was kind of chased by a water cannon or was beaten by the police just by staring at what was going on, and said, wait a second, I didn't do anything, and then they kind of get in there. The median age was 28, and women made up like half of the protesters. And then it was a very mixed group. In the beginning, it was people were fighting in nighttime, and they actually started making an encampment in the park. So they have, it's quite resembling very much to, if you have seen the images of the Occupy movement in the Zuccotti Park in New York, that is quite resembling, that they have even started planting an area, they have had a library with donated books, and they had a corner where people have been just bringing food. They didn't want to circulate any money inside the park, so they have been people who didn't have time to come and be a part in the park and the protest. They've been just bringing food to the protesters. Says my mom picked them from our garden, the garden cherries. And then also, like, they've been having slogans on the humor was a big part of it, like to kind of keeping the spirit. We have our we're cooking our eggs with the pepper spray, and then all the slogans that I will also come to some of them in the coming pictures. And then also using all of the things like from the police barricades and using them in their structures, that's how they have made sleeping areas and eating areas, using those. And lots of donated food and so on. And during the protests, so people just came there with their citizen identity in the beginning, but as the time went on, there was people's microphone, and people started to kind of bring whatever they have as specialty. For instance, there was a lot of cursing going on. There was a socialist feminist collective. They wanted to run a cursing workshop, which they would kind of help people to have an unbiased cursing while they're doing that, so to kind of see each other. So it was a very interesting mixture. And one of the groups who started showing more and more presence was anti-capitalist Muslims. And one of the days was a religious day. I don't know it in English, maybe it's a more traditional day, but that one could pray and so on. So they have, and this pastry is a special pastry which you kind of distribute and cook at those days. So at that day there will be no drinking, no alcohol, no conflict, no cursing, no provocation, and no violence. There will be more respect, peace, prayers, and always the protest. And there's this cement, the pastry. So as I said, humor was a big part of it, and actually not the mainstream media, but but cartoon magazines were very good in kind of using those things, and people have been also very actively very creative in making those slogans. I guess you could, yeah, that you can't intimidate us with tear gas because we have been checking the gas leak with lighter. And I think also even my generation that people remember for killing mosquitoes these cars that are having these clouds of DDT in the back, that tear gas is nothing, so we're kind of trained in that sense. So just a little before the protests, a new ban kind of went into circulation, which kind of forbid the alcohol sale from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. So that says that you banned alcohol and people sobered up. And there is also, in the discourse of the current government, they are trying to get the Muslim, Sunni Muslim, a specific type of understanding into the private circles. So the Prime Minister has said several times that everybody should at least have 3 children. So that says that, do you want 3 children like me? And on the 6th or 7th day, Prime Minister Erdogan declared Twitter is a troublemaker, because there has been a lot of activity going on Twitter, and most of the people who have heard the events, the younger generation, have used Twitter actively, also for looking at the streets which are safer, which doesn't have police, where there's like free available wireless and so on. They have been using Twitter. So they tried to ban Twitter by using a DNS block. So then we started seeing these kind of alternative DNS, and people, actually grandmothers, asking like, how can I have a Twitter account? And then you understand that something is kind of trickling a little bit. And then it's also like one was about the Twitter, and then this is referring to the Penguin documentary, which was being shown in the first days when CNN International was broadcasting and CNN Turk was broadcasting Penguin documentary. So people started dressing up like penguins, and these have been kind of shown on the walls immediately. And it was like really quick, just you would hear about it, and some hours that you would see something in circulation that was really good. And also, so in the pro-government media, there was saying that, oh, the people in Taksim is just a group of looters. They are just giving harm to the public property. So they are not really some people to that you should defend and so on. So protesters started to do cleaning in daytime while they were kind of fighting in nighttime. It became like a part of the dynamic. So I talked about earlier that how before the park there was this Armenian cemetery. So there a group of Armenians of Turkey have set up a small memorial inside the Gezi Park and said you took our graveyard, but you won't be able to take our park, referring to that. And this is very important because even though this is not too past, like it's in early 1900, it's totally erased from the mainstream, like our memories that nobody knows. And these tombstones have been discovered in 2012 in a road construction, which was from that graveyard, but the municipality thought that they were from the Byzantine period, so they wanted to kind of they looked for some experts to look through it, so that nobody remembers, even the officials who are working in these areas. In this, so the Republic has been very successful in covering all those conflicts, which is actually living, of course, in the memories of these communities. And it's a part of today's conflict, so it's much more deeper than things that you could kind of access very easily. I'm just saying that so I don't want to be too romantic about building commons based on that, but maybe there's a way of dialogue. So what happened is that I said that there have been 5 people who died. People had their conflicts, but there was a very mixed group of people. So there were socialist feminists, anti-capitalist Muslims, there were feminist initiatives, there were LGBT groups, there were Kurdish nationalists and so on. But they all kind of own the people who died during the process. So the whole protest kind of created their own heroes, which kind of, they used their recent past to foreground all those conflicts, which was there before. They actually, I don't know if you know, but for Turks, the soccer is like super important, and people are really supporting their teams to death. So during the protest, there had been a group called Istanbul United. So from all these different teams, they said whoever wins, that we will all win, kind of mentality. And they were kind of using their soccer team uniforms while they were throwing stones to the police and so on. This is a building that is very close to the Gezi Park, to the park, and during the protest it was occupied by the protesters, and everybody put their own posters, and it kind of shows the variety of different groups that kind of wanted to be there, and they kind of coexisted during the time. So before I start that, so at the time, the encampment was removed in mid-June, I think, and right after that, and it was removed by a forceful with police intervention. And after that, there had been a period where people started to kind of meet instead of Gezi Park, because it was closed. They kind of cleared it, and they closed it, and people just started meeting in their neighborhood parks. And a week or 10 days after, a new practice started. So a group from the Gezi Park, anti-capitalist Muslims, made an announcement to have what shall I do? Clap? Or yeah. So Ramadan started, and Ramadan is a fasting month for Muslims, Sunni Muslims, and at the end of the day, when the sun starts setting down, that you come together and eat your food, start eating food. So you don't eat or drink during the daytime, but you do it at nighttime. So what the anti-capitalist Muslims have done, said that we're going to just make one big table, that we'll call it the Earth table, and everybody is welcome, and we're going to eat all together. And you just bring your food, whatever you have. If you don't have anything, just come and we will share. So the idea behind iftar, this fast breaking, is originally this traditional, that you share your food with your extended family, you break bread together, and it's usually quite modest in how you do it. But how it turned out in the last 10, 15 years, like everything else, like with the neoliberalism, of course, also creeped into how we practice religion and so on. It became that you go to a luxurious restaurant and have like 50 different sort of small mezes, and then you eat from them instead. And it became a way that you show off your wealth by going to those places, or for the very wealthy to give, to have iftar meals to the ones who would need, but to kind of also make sure their names are mentioned. So it became kind of a little bit of a PR work as well. So this is happening on Istiklal Street, which is connected to this long 1.5 kilometer long pedestrian street that is connected to the Gezi Park and Taksim Square area. And I should mention that people who are there are not all necessarily fasting. Like they were just waiting to eat at the same time, but it was like open to everyone. So it became, it kind of, even though a certain group made the announcement, anti-capitalist Muslims, it kind of finds its reflection from all different parts of the society, and people just started showing up, and they also, she's just bringing some food and saying that share it, we had like extra, we cooked extra. And I forgot to mention, but I think now it will soon come. The week between the encampment was ended and also the Ramadan started, there was the Pride, the Gay Pride Parade, which was the most colorful Pride event ever. So some people here have been also kind of using the same slogans that they have used there while they're shouting at the police. He's doing some sort of quite simple prayer that we were kind of thankful, but kind of everyone can say even though they're not believers. So I should just go further. So this is a water can, like this tear gas water spraying police car that is at the end. And what it is doing is that it's stopping people to pass that and go towards Gezi Park, or the table to go towards Gezi Park. And I will show you in a minute what was behind that. So it was like that. So that was the car. And the police and preventing people to pass. And behind that, that's what's happening. This is the municipality organized iftar meal where it's actually, you can see very well, but it's enclosed that you cannot enter. Turkey has a lot of Syrian refugees in the last 2 years, so there are a lot of people who are living in the streets basically, and they were trying to enter. And the idea of it is that the ones who are hungry should be fed. But this was like the ones who were thought by the police as appropriate could enter and eat in this. So these earth iftars went on for 30 days. That's how the Ramadan endures. And then it also was repeated this year too, and not only in this location, at different cities. And people also started to kind of cook large amounts of food from home, and then they just would bring and distribute it in there. And yeah, actually, there was kind of ending there. She's someone's grandma who had been arrested actually, but luckily she didn't stay in there for a very long time. So what Gezi protests did in the end, the park is in its place, so they kind of withdrew the project. There's not going to be any construction. When I first kind of talked about this and presenting this idea, people said that when the park is gone, the commons is quite attached to a space. The park is gone, then there won't be any commons maybe behind that, or the idea of it would be really hurt. Even though the park was not as accessible as before, people have started using the other parks more. And the practice of this iftar, which was like, I should also mention that there's a deep divide between the secular and the religious in Turkey. And there are because of miscommunication, because of a lot of things, even though we are traditionally quite bound, like from secular families, you would be also having traditions that is related to Islam, but you wouldn't be really sitting down and talk, it's us and them. And then the events that happened, I said that social media was very important, and I should say that the internet usage in Turkey is like around 50% just reached this year. So half of the population is getting their news from the mainstream media. So there has to be something else, so the people who are there are a certain group of people, we could say maybe educated, a young group of, maybe you can even call elites. But what I think that was interesting about this Earth Iftar is that it's kind of reclaiming an old tradition and bringing it back, and with a very simple and powerful message, and bringing it into public space temporarily, and then kind of opening up a space for discussion with all these people, believers or non-believers, and not really emphasizing anything about them. and opening up a dialogue, which I found very important. And I thought that then the commons would be existing in all this idea where people are referring back to the Gezi period or what was happening in 2013 as a possibility that what could happen later, not with the not using money to be able to just sit down and talk with people who you wouldn't share their political views or lifestyles. So that's more or less that. What I would like.